All right, welcome back, forward deployed engineers, product managers, and tech leads to this explainer. Today, we're tackling a universal pain point that I know we've all felt. We are talking about turning a vague, one-line executive ask into an airtight, Jira-Ready specification that an engineer can actually sit down and build from.
Picture this. It's, 2:48 p.m. on a Thursday, and Jordan, your VP of RevOps at a $340 million ARR company called Helix Revenue Cloud, drops this exact 7-word screenshot right into your Slack. Build us an AI agent that helps reps work the right deals. Below it, the only context you get is a Q2 objective to increase pipeline coverage.
So, you're sitting there with a $180K budget and exactly one engineer, let's call him Chen, for 10 weeks. Chen looks at the request and rightfully asks this frankly terrifying question. Okay, what are we actually building? You stare at the message. It doesn't say which rep. It doesn't define what right even means. It literally doesn't even say what action is triggered or what an engineer would observe on a Monday morning to prove this thing works. A VP-level business ask is just the start of an engagement, folks. It is absolutely not the spec.
Okay, let's take a quick look at our roadmap for today. We're covering the ambiguous ask, the 3 lenses of specification, AC versus DoD, a worked example, and finally, some common pitfalls. Let's dive in.
Section 1, the 3 lenses, story, AC, and DoD. To survive this kind of engagement, we absolutely need rigorous frameworks. Our first lens is the classic user story. Codified by Mike Cohn, this format is brilliant because it's essentially doing 3 jobs at once. First, it forces us to name a specific actor, not just the user. Second, it forces a narrow capability we can actually negotiate. And most importantly, it names the actual outcome the persona experiences. That outcome is the only thing the team can later point to and measure as value delivered.
But how do you actually know if a story is good enough to pull into a sprint? You run it through Bill Wake's Invest mnemonic. The story must be independent, meaning it ships without any bundled prerequisites. It has to be negotiable so the team can actually argue the scope, valuable so someone notices when it lands, estimable so we can size it, small meaning it actually fits in a single sprint, and testable meaning you can write a strict yes or no check for it.
Next up is our second lens, acceptance criteria, or AC. Dan North introduced this, and it pushes us way past a simple vibe check into a strict given, when, then format. A given is a state the team can actually construct as a fixture. A when is a single triggering event. And a then is an outcome the team can physically observe, like a database row or a logged metric, not just a feeling that it works. And our third lens is the definition of done. Think of this as your team's ultimate checklist. We're talking about things like latency budgets, structured logging on every single model call, or feature flags. These are the non-negotiable standards that gate the merge to the main branch, regardless of what the specific story is actually about. Moving on to Section 2, the crucial distinction between acceptance criteria and definition of done. Now, listen closely here, because confusing these 2 concepts is literally the #1 way non-functional work just vanishes when deadlines loom. So the crucial point to remember is this load-bearing distinction. Acceptance criteria are functional and per story. The definition of done is cross-cutting and per team. If you blur these together in your Jira ticket, I guarantee you, when time pressure hits, the team will say, let's just ship the AC, and silently drop crucial non-functional work like logging, eval, and security, treating them as nice-to-haves. Section 3, the worked example. Let's look at Priya's transformation. Let's bring this all into the real world. We've got Priya, our senior forward-deployed engineer, and she is incredibly methodical. She takes Jordan's wild VP request and walks Chen through the transformation into a precise spec. First, she totally rejects the generic term rep. Helix has SDRs, AEs, and CSMs. She picks the account executives specifically because they have the cleanest Salesforce object and the highest revenue impact. Next, she narrows the capability. Not just prioritize my opportunities, but specifically see the top 5 open opportunities. Finally, she defines the exact observable behavior change for Monday morning, spending the first hour on closable deals. And boom, look at what she comes up with. This results in a beautifully invest-tested story. The capability is small, it's highly testable, and it directly impacts the AE's observable behavior. Think about it. If the AE opens 3 of those 5 listed opportunities within the first 90 minutes of login, the test passes. That is truly airtight logic. This next part is brilliant because it illustrates how Priya turns truly awful draft acceptance criteria into solid gold. Look, FDEs often write things like, the system should be fast, or the AI should be smart. Guys, those are banned, ambiguous words. Priya rewrites them into concrete requirements with strict targets, a rendering time of 1.5 seconds at the 95th percentile, and specific Gong-derived signals like stakeholder changes or sentiment shifts. There's no more guessing. Then, Priya locks in a bulletproof definition of done. She specifies evaluation precision, end-to-end latency, structured logging, feature flags, the whole shebang. By keeping this in the DoD, she ensures these are non-negotiable team standards that strictly gate the merge, rather than treating them as per-story arguments that might just get descoped on a Friday afternoon. But here's the real pro move. She explicitly names what is out of scope, right there in the ticket. She explicitly excludes writebacks to Salesforce or building for SDR and CSM personas. Smart out-of-scopes name the surfaces and paths you intentionally want to avoid, so Chen doesn't accidentally start building the wrong thing and waste a week of sprint time. Section 4. Common spec-writing pitfalls. Okay, even with all these frameworks firmly in hand, people still mess this up. So let's quickly examine 3 massive failure modes you absolutely must avoid when writing your specs. The first pitfall is writing AI for X as a story. This utterly fails. Why? Because there is no actor specific enough to test, there's no observable trigger, and there's no measurable behavior change. Closing more is the VP's outcome. It's not an outcome we can immediately observe the agent driving for the AE on Monday morning. Pitfall number 2 is a total trap. Writing acceptance criteria that basically just says, hey, it works. Sure, it has the shape of given when then, but it has none of the forcing properties. It completely lacks a constructible fixture, a single timestamped event, or an outcome that an automated script can actually check. It's totally useless to a developer. And pitfall 3, smushing the definition of done right into the acceptance criteria. Remember, stating that code is well-tested and documented is a team bar for every single ticket that goes through your sprint. It does not describe the specific functional behavior of this one isolated story. You've got to keep them mutually exclusive and collectively exhaustive. As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a final thought. You've seen the frameworks, the rigorous breakdown, and the common traps that catch so many teams off guard. So how will you apply these rigid boundaries to your very next sprint planning to transform executive chaos into engineering clarity? Think about it. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I'll see you next time.